first off, I need to get a congratulatory, just hand clap, whatever I can do. Just buy the guy a beer, for God's sakes, because the Moose, Brian Elliott, stood on his head today. Brian Elliott was absolutely fantastic. 40 save shutout for Brian Elliott. And the Flyers, they beat the Buffalo Sabres on the second of the back-to-back night. They beat them by a score of 3-0. And like I said, Brian Elliott with the 40 save shutout, absolutely fantastic. And just for the Flyers to bounce back after just playing probably one of the worst hockey games I've ever seen last night. Probably one of the worst hockey games that I've seen. And it shows this team that there's still that little bit of spark from last season. Only it is the first 4 games into the season. Don't forget that at all. But remember last year when it started around that stretch during January, and then you eventually saw the team as when they would lose games, they would bounce back and they would turn those wins into stretches of wins. But every time they lost, they would always bounce back the next game. Whether it was a back-to-back game, whether it was just one loss and a couple of days later you play another game, you bounce back. That is what this team did here today. This was probably one of the, out of all 4 of their games, this was definitely the best effort game. This is definitely the best overall game that they have played. Yeah, they won the 2 games against the Pittsburgh Penguins, but there were a lot of mistakes in those games. They just were very opportunistic, and they were able to score on the chances that they got. In this game, 100 times better effort than last night and the other 2 games combined, I would honestly say. And just the overall game. They didn't look like they panicked that much. They were getting their chances. They had a lot more chances today. They had the most shots on net out of the first 4 games this season, 30 shots. They finally surpassed 30 shots, which is still something that's a little concerning, and they still need to get some more shots on net, though. But they're still getting outshot. But Brian Elliott just, I can't compliment Brian Elliott enough for how fantastic he was in this game. Especially like in some of those instances in the first period where he's like sprawling out to make some of these saves, and it was funny too. I was on the watch party for the Painted Lines, and one of the people in the comment section, well, during the live chat, was saying that Brian Elliott is going to make a big save to prevent the Buffalo Sabres from going up 1-0. And later on during that period, Brian Elliott makes this fantastic save with his pad, and it prevents the Buffalo Sabres from going up 1-0. I was just like, okay, it's gonna be one of those games for Brian Elliott. He looked fantastic. Oh my goodness, he was great. He was absolutely great. But it also didn't start off the best of ways, just because the Flyers go down the penalty early, then they get a 5-on-3, but they eventually kill it off. But it wasn't a good look early on because you took those 2 early penalties. But then also, during the game, Phil Myers in that first period, he takes a hit at center ice. I think it was McCabe that made the hit. And it looked like just an innocent play right there. They collided a little bit, but no one fell. They just stood up right after. But once you saw Phil Myers got to the bench, you saw him lingering a little bit. You saw him like maybe favoring his side a little bit. And then as soon as you knew it, the broadcast was saying they don't see Phil Myers on the bench, which is a scary sight. And also during this game in the second period, Morgan Frost, he takes a hit behind the Sabres net, and then you saw him favoring his left arm more, and then he doesn't return for the rest of the game. So you got 2 scary situations, and Alain Vigneault just said during his press conference that both of them are getting MRIs, and you probably won't find out what is wrong with them until tomorrow. So hopefully it's not as bad as they looked, because with Sean Couture's situation, you thought it was going to be way worse just because it was around the shoulder area, but then it turned out to be a rib problem, and he's only going to be out for 2 weeks, which was the bright side. It was only 2 weeks. I thought it was going to be way worse for Sean Couturier. But with this situation, it does sound like Phil Myers is dealing with maybe a rib or maybe a hip issue, so hopefully it's not too serious there, but also you can't falter with those things because the hip injury is serious. And then the same thing with Morgan Frost's situation. Hopefully it's not like he tore something in his arm, maybe he dislocated something, because he was really favoring that arm going to the bench. So definitely got to wait and see right there. And if these guys are to miss time over the next course of the next few games, you would expect Mark Friedman, because he is the extra defenseman on the roster right now. He is the 7th guy. You would expect him to come in to replace Phil Myers, because right now Shane Gostisbehere isn't on the roster because of what's going on with his COVID situation. Even though it's not even confirmed that he has COVID, he was just on the COVID injured list, and he got taken off the roster. So Mark Friedman is the next guy to step up. for the defensive core if Phil Myers is going to miss some time, which honestly I would expect it, maybe a game or two. Hopefully it's not anything further to that extent, but right now you just gotta wait and see till tomorrow. Morgan Frost, if he is going to miss time, you would expect Connor Bunnaman to be the next forward up to replace him, because he was the extra guy called up from the taxi squad when Sean Couturier went down with the injury. So expect Connor Bunnaman to be called into the lineup if Morgan Frost does miss some time here. And also, if Connor Bunnaman does come into the lineup and Morgan Frost misses some time, I would definitely expect the Flyers to go into the taxi squad, bring up another forward, maybe even bring up another defenseman, just to have that safety precaution right there. So it's going to be a scary situation. We got to wait until tomorrow to see what is wrong with Phil Myers and Morgan Frost. Hopefully it is nothing too serious. But let's get back to the rest of the game at hand. So we're getting closer towards the end of the second period. We got the Nolan Patrick line, him, TK, Oscar Lindblom. And honestly, at the start of the game, too, it looked like Alain Vigneault was keeping the same lines out there. G, Hayes, Farabee. Then you had Frost, TK, Lindblom. Then you had Patrick, JVR, Voracek. Then you had the same fourth line of Lawton, Raffle, and Nicolas Aube-Kubel. But then as the game started to go along, you started seeing Alain Vigneault mix up the lines a little bit. You still saw Drew there with Hayes and Konechny, but then sometimes you would see Drew on a different line, then sometimes you would see Konechny on a different line. He was mixing and matching as the game went along, but then as the game went along, you saw Nolan Patrick on that second line with Travis Konechny and Oscar Lindblom. And honestly, those guys had a lot of chemistry. They made a lot of fantastic plays during this game. And at the end of the second period, I think this was around 5 to the 4th minute mark or something like that, closing towards the end of the period. And this set up by Nolan Patrick to Oscar Lindblom. So Nolan Patrick, he's by the red line of the Flyers zone, hands it over to Lindblom, then Lindblom makes this amazing feed, stretches the ice, who has Travis Konechny coming up the right side to the neutral zone, and he gets by the defenseman, in for a breakaway, and then he goes 5-hole past Carter Hutton, and it's a 1-0 Flyers lead. And going into the third period, Buffalo replaces Carter Hutton, brings in their backup goaltender, I think is Johansson or Johnson, whatever his name is. And because I think this was during the second period, Ivan Provorov was driving a net for one of the plays, and he got pushed into the net, into Carter Hutton by one of the Buffalo defensemen. So I would assume that is the reason why Buffalo decided to take out Carter Hutton right there, because he was lingering a little bit after that Ivan Provorov, like when he crashed into the net. So that's probably the main reason why Carter Hutton was taken out of the game. So you got Brian Elliott making all of these saves around the world in the first and the second period, keeping the Flyers out of the game. You got Dylan Cousins for the Buffalo Sabres having a wide open net, and he hits the post. So I was literally just like, there was just like one sequence during this like entire second period where you thought, no, I think Travis Konechny was supposed to get a goal. This was before the Flyers scored, and it looked like one side of the ice, Travis Konechny couldn't find a way to bury the puck, and then you got another side of the ice where Dylan Cousins can't bury the puck when he has a wide open net. He hits the post. So it's just like, oh my goodness, this is back and forth hockey. I love it. This is very exciting, but can someone score, please? And thank God it was Travis Konechny scoring on that breakaway 5-0 right through Carter Hutton. So we go to the intermission, the second intermission, with the Flyers up 1-0. And the third period, it was more, I would say the same, but the Flyers, I would say, hampering it down more defensively. And I'm honestly surprised too, but also not surprised at the same time, because you are missing a defenseman in Phil Myers. But to play as well defensively as the Flyers did throughout this entire game, they played a lot better defensively. It was 10 times better than it was yesterday. There were still little mishaps here and there, still a little few turnovers here and there, but not to the extreme that it was at last night. Much better sound defensive game, and just overall better complete effort throughout the entire situation. And you got Brian Elliott making more saves, just looking even more fantastic. Flyers getting some chances down the ice. Nolan Patrick had a chance where for some reason the goaltender just barely got a piece of the glove on it, and he should have had something. The Flyers get a power play. They really can't cash in on that either. But then you get late in the third period, you get Kevin Hayes breaking up for a 2-on-1 with Jake Voracek. The puck is fluttering out of the Flyers zone, lands on the stick of Kevin Hayes. He brings it up. He fakes the shot a little bit, then goes right directly to Jake Voracek, who just wires it past the goaltender. And the goaltender got a piece of it too. It went directly under his arm. It trickled into the net. And it's a 2-0 Flyers lead. Jake Voracek gets his first goal of the season. And for Travis Konechny, that's his 4th goal in the first 4 games of the season. Love seeing that right there. And the Flyers continue to hamper it down defensively. Buffalo, they decide to get a little, they're still getting their chances. They're still getting their shots on net. Then we get down to the 2-minute mark. I think it was around the 2.5, honestly, when Buffalo decides to pull the goaltender. There's a face-off in the Flyers zone. The Flyers are playing very well defensively, and then you got Kevin Hayes that's just on the right side for the Flyers. He has the puck there, and he just backhand flutters it all the way down the ice, and it goes into the empty net, and it's a 3-0 Flyers lead. And that's how your game is going to end right there for the Flyers. A 3-0 lead. Brian Elliott with a 40-save shutout. Just absolutely 100 times better. 100 times better performance by the Flyers tonight. Just overall, you can't credit enough how good Brian Elliott was in this game. How good the Moose was in this game. Flat out amazing. Absolutely amazing. And it's, like I said, this situation right now with Phil Myers and Morgan Frost, you got to wait until tomorrow because they're getting their MRIs right now. You just got to wait and see what happens. But the Flyers, they have a tough stretch definitely coming up over the next week and a half or so. So we got Thursday, Saturday, Boston Bruins at TD Garden in Boston. That's going to be a tough matchup right there. I know Boston this year, they are struggling to score at 5-on-5. I think right now, this might be changed though, but I think as of right now, all of their goals that they have scored this season in their first so many games have been over special teams, whether that was shorthanded or on the power play. I don't think they have been as good at 5-on-5. But Boston, they are still a very tough team. They still got Brad Marchand. They still got Patrice Bergeron. They got McAvoy. They got Halak. They got Brask. They are still a very tough team to play, even though they don't have David Pastrnak because he's still injured, and I don't think he's expected back into that lineup until February. So it's a little break right there for the Flyers, but still definitely a tough competition. Then you got the young New Jersey Devils next week, I think Tuesday and Thursday. Tough matchup right there. Devils, they're still not that very good of a team in my opinion. They're way better than they are last year. They're still a very young and up-and-coming team, still trying to get the ropes there and there, but still going to be a tough matchup when they have Mackenzie Blackwood in the net. He's been really good for them over the first couple of games for them. But then you also close the month out with the New York Islanders. We all know the story with the Islanders and the Flyers over the past year, especially last year during the previous bubble playoffs. So there's a little bit of a rivalry right there. Maybe the Flyers get some revenge on them in those final 2 games of the month. But it's going to be a little bit tough for the Flyers. We got to find out what's wrong with Morgan Frost and Phil Myers to really assess the entire situation. If they are out, I would expect Mark Friedman and Connor Bunnaman to slide into the lineup. And just overall with this game, much better performance, complete effort throughout. There were still a little bit of mistakes here and there, but not to the extreme where it was yesterday. This was their best overall effort of the first 4 games out of the entire season so far, and I only expect this team to get better, but it does kind of suck that the injury bug is starting to hit us. So that's kind of the scary situation. So, without a doubt, a lot better game. Got to congrat the Moose right there, 40-save shutout. And let's move on to the Boston Bruins. So I want to hear your thoughts right now. Don't forget to leave your comment in the comment section. What are your thoughts about this game? Brian Elliott, Travis Konecny, your thoughts entirely on this game. So don't forget to leave your comment in the comment section. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to check out the Painted Lines, which I am a part of. We just wrapped up our Flyers watch party. Very fun time. It was basically just myself right there, but Tyson did join us during that watch party for a little bit. It was a good time just talking back and forth with the chat after watching the Flyers game. So don't forget to check out the Paint Alliance. They'll be doing their Sixers watch party tomorrow. Don't forget to check that out. Their links will be in the description below. Don't forget to check out the Florida Podcast merchandise website. That link will also be in the description below. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe. Definitely hit that subscribe button. And I will see you next time.